Alysa Liu had barely stepped foot inside the stadium when, with just under 10 minutes to go, the single most important performance of her career was about to begin. It was the opening week of the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics, and the intense scrutiny surrounding Team USA had reached an almost unbearable peak. For Alysa, this was supposed to be her cinematic breakthrough, the triumphant storybook return, where the once exhausted former prodigy would finally silence every doubter on the ice. Yet, instead of focusing inward, running through her routine mentally or completing quiet off, ice exercises in a peaceful preparation zone, she found herself stuck in the back of a van. A major political motorcade had brought the ancient, expansive streets of Milan to a complete standstill, entrapping the reigning U.S. national champion in an immovable wall of security vehicles, while her top international competitors were already in the arena, tightening their laces and doing last-minute edge inspections. In the relentless, high-stakes environment of top-level Olympic figure skating, where the tiniest fraction of a millimeter on a skate blade can separate euphoric triumph from devastating disappointment, consistency and preparation are sacred. Most athletes in her position would have broken down in tears. Most would have spiraled into full panic, watching their lifelong Olympic dream slip away amid the gridlock of Italian streets. But when Alysa Liu finally burst through the arena's heavy doors with mere moments left before her scheduled start, she wasn't breathless or unraveling, she was laughing. She tied her skates in a flash and completely bypassed the usual televised 6-minute warm-up session skaters rely on to feel the ice, and walked directly into the harsh Olympic spotlight. What happened next upended every traditional notion of how an Olympic skater is supposed to behave. She delivered a short program, so full of fierce joy, so vividly confident and daring, that it left the entire crowd speechless. When she took off into her trademark double axel and touched down with a small, unsteady wobble, she didn't grimace. She didn't cast a nervous, apologetic look toward the judges like a scolded student. Instead, she shot them a playful, mischievous, completely unfazed look. Later, when reporters swarmed her about the mistake, she simply lifted her shoulders, flashed her signature wide smile, and said casually, "Oopsie." That little hoopsie wasn't merely a cute reaction to a flawed landing. It carried weight. It was a declaration sent out to millions. It announced to everyone watching that the Alysa Liu standing on the Milan ice was someone entirely transformed from the fragile teenager who had quietly disappeared 4 years earlier. She hadn't returned simply to collect hardware. She had come back to take back ownership of her own existence. And here's what became clear. When you finally let go of obsessing over the cold numerical scoreboard and start truly loving the craft itself, you become almost impossible to defeat. To understand the staggering magnitude of Alysa's Olympic gold medal comeback, it's necessary to look back. You have to see the hollow, weary expression of the child who once loomed so large over the sport long before she became the fearless, unfiltered icon of Milan. Alysa Liu was the carefully engineered centerpiece of the American figure skating system. Raised in Clovis, California, and shaped within the ultra-intense win-at-all-costs culture of Bay Area skating, she was built to dominate. Her father, Arthur Liu, famously invested more than $1 million in her training before she even started high school. Her childhood was meticulously designed around one goal, the top step of the podium. At 12, she became the youngest skater ever to complete a triple axel in international competition. At 13, she achieved the impossible, claiming the U.S. national title and dethroning a record that the iconic Tara Rolinski had held for more than 2 decades. She was the sport's anointed prodigy, the girl with flawless braids and an ever-present smile. Expected to single-handedly rescue American women skating from the shadow of Russia's quad, jumping powerhouse athletes. But beneath the sparkling costumes and polished presentation, the gifted child was slowly suffocating. Her days were locked into a merciless schedule of 5 a.m. wake-ups, freezing early morning ice sessions and schoolwork completed in the backseat during endless California commutes. A naturally outgoing, lively personality, she was confined to profound isolation. Shielded from ordinary friendships by a tightly controlled environment, she was simultaneously laid bare to non-stop online scrutiny. Every jump analyzed, every bite of food judged, every physical change during puberty picked apart by critics and fans alike. Now, by the time the 2022 Beijing Olympics arrived and she was only 16, she was barely holding herself together. The Ice Princess image was cracking apart. She was throwing high-risk, body-damaging quadruple jumps in a sport she had come to quietly despise. Though the world saw her finish a solid 6th place amid a pandemic disrupted, controversy-plagued games. Inside, she was simply waiting for it all to end. She wasn't battling for medals in Beijing. She was battling to escape. Just weeks after earning bronze at the World Championships, she stunned the skating world by announcing her retirement. The 16-year-old phenom didn't merely step away from the activity that had shaped her entire identity. She vanished completely for 2 years. Her custom-made high-end skates sat forgotten in a dark closet corner. In painfully honest interviews later on, she confessed that for a long stretch, she genuinely couldn't remember where they even were. That period became known as Alysa Liu's missing years. For her, though, it wasn't emptiness. It was the first time in her 2 decades of life that she truly discovered who she was outside the rink. She did everything the old-school buttoned-up skating establishment warned against. She took spontaneous road trips with regular friends who had no idea what a skalkow was. She enrolled at UCLA to study psychology, finally diving into the unpredictable, joyful mess of college social life she'd been denied for so long. She journeyed to Nepal and hiked all the way to Everest Base Camp, trading the cold, sanitized air of skating arenas for the thin, sharp atmosphere of the mountains. She played casual volleyball and tennis, purely for the pleasure of moving without someone scoring her performance. During that break, she deliberately rebuilt her sense of self. Figure skating has long demanded a narrow, traditional, conservative aesthetic. Alysa rejected it completely. She dyed her hair in striking platinum raccoon stripes. She added a discreet, smiley-piercing tuck behind her upper lip. She embraced an alternative Gen Z rock-inspired look that would have left old guard coaches speechless. She described it simply as living her best life, and she was certain she'd never compete on ice again. She openly told interviewers she had genuinely come to dislike skating. She wanted no part of the corporate machine that had consumed her adolescence. Then in early 24, a quiet but powerful change began inside her. It wasn't pressure from Federation officials or a tempting sponsorship offer. It was an ordinary ski outing with friends. As she sped down the slope, the crisp wind hitting her face and the raw thrill of motion flooding her senses, something clicked. She didn't hate the ice itself. She missed the rush, the sensation of soaring. What she resented was the poisonous pressure system built around it. So she slipped into a local public rink filled with beginners and weekend skaters, just to test whether her body still remembered. She pulled on her old battered boots, glided across the surface, launched into a double axel and landed it cleanly. That one clean jump reignited everything. This time, though, everything would be different. If Alysa Liu was returning to elite competition, it would happen strictly on her own conditions. Not her father's schedule. Not for medal tallies, but entirely for herself. She would select her own music. She would design her own unconventional costumes, and she would prioritize mental well-being and genuine enjoyment above all else. The 2025 season was intended as a gentle re-entry, a low-pressure way to discover whether she could still compete with the best after years of pizza nights and campus life. Instead, it turned into a dominant, emotionally raw display of skill and authenticity. When she showed up at the 2025 World Championships in Boston, global coverage was fixated on the seemingly invincible Japanese team. Few believed Alysa, back in serious training for under a year, could challenge for gold. Then she stepped onto the ice. Her short program set a new personal best and stunned the entire field. She skated with a maturity, a subtlety, and calm presence her younger, hyper-trained self never had. She wasn't desperately chasing scores. She was sharing something real with the audience in the free skate. She was transformative. She became the first American woman in 19 long years to claim the world title. ending a painful draw for the U.S. program that stretched back to Kimmy Missner in 2006. But the most meaningful part of that victory wasn't the medal itself. It was her reaction in the kiss and cry area. She cried, not from relief at achieving a target, but from deep, honest pride in the art she had created. She had taken her sport back from the shadows that once haunted her. Speaking to the press in Boston, she said plainly that medals don't define her worth. "I validate myself when I make art." She stated this marked the arrival of Alysa 2.0. You're the skater who approaches the Olympics like a performance space and treats the leaderboard as secondary? And that brings us to the heart of the 2026 Milano Cortina Games, where the so-called Blade Angels captured global attention. The nickname emerged naturally in a group chat among Alysa, Amber Glenn, and Isabel Levito. A lighthearted way to celebrate their close bond in a sport that often breeds rivalry and isolation. Together, they formed the most culturally resonant and beloved group in modern American skating history. Three bold individuals who refused to conform to the outdated ice princess stereotype. In the Olympic team event earlier that month, Alysa was the dynamic force driving the U.S. squad. Despite the motorcade chaos and zero proper warm-up, her brilliant second-place short program earned Team USA 9 crucial points that shifted the momentum. She skated with an untamed, contagious energy when the Americans claimed their second straight team gold and stood atop the podium. Alysa was the one leaping highest, shouting loudest, and fully immersed in the moment. Then came the now iconic medal scandal. In her uncontained excitement, she jumped so energetically that the heavy gold medal broke free from its ribbon and crashed onto the arena floor. It ended up scratched and dented. It got pretty banged up. She laughed in a widely shared interview, owning the mishap. When Olympic staff offered to exchange the damaged piece for a flawless replacement, Alysa declined. She told them she preferred the flawed version. The imperfections felt personal to her. That dented scratch gold mirrored her own path. Imperfect, battle-worn, but undeniably genuine. That one honest moment connected deeply with a generation tired of overly scripted, robotic Olympic stories. On the night of February 19, 2026, the climax of the Winter Games, Alysa Liu returned to the ice for the women's individual free skate. The pressure could not have been greater. Yet backstage, while her Japanese and South Korean rivals paced anxiously and stared downward under crushing national expectations, Alysa was casually holding a Poeta plush from Chainsaw Man, eating udon noodles and chatting with her coaches about TV shows. She entered as the reigning world champion, Grand Prix final winner, and clear favorite to end America's 24-year wait for an individual women's gold, like a draw lingering since Sarah Hughes' surprise victory in Salt Lake City in 2002. As her name echoed through the arena, Alysa wasn't focused on anthems or record books. She was caught up in the excitement. She glided to center ice. The crowd fell silent. She struck her opening pose and unexpectedly let out a long, slow exhale. Her new free program was a raw expression of her reclaimed freedom. No somber classical piece crafted to plead for artistic marks. Instead, she emerged in a striking, edgy gold costume to the bold, disco-charged swell of Donna Summer's MacArthur Park Suite. It was daring, unconventional, full of synths and horns, and utterly captivating. The technical execution that followed was a masterclass in precision and resilience. She avoided the punishing quads that once wrecked her teenage body and spirit. Instead, she emphasized flawless quality. Each of her 7 triple jumps flowed out smoothly, earning huge Joey bonuses from the judges. Her spins were textbook-centered. Her footwork was dazzlingly complex. Her program components, especially artistry, reached career highs. Yet the true brilliance lived in the moments between jumps. Alysa connected directly with the 12,000 fans, locking eyes with people in the front rows, performing for them, not for a panel of scorers. BBC announcers remarked live that she looked like she was having the time of her life. Her description almost never applied to the tense, pressurized atmosphere of an Olympic final. This joyful, carefree intensity became her greatest strength. She had discovered how to be the planet's top skater without letting the chase destroy her. When the final soaring notes of Donna Summer filled the arena and Alysa hit her closing pose, the outcome felt predestined. The stadium erupted. Alysa raised her fists, tilted her head back, and absorbed the thunderous cheers of a crowd that recognized they had witnessed something historic. The scoreboard lit up a season-best 150.2 in the free for a commanding total of 220 stith 79 points. The truth settled in. The Orpsey girl had become the undisputed Olympic champion. She had fended off Japan's strongest challenges. She had ended America's long individual drought. Above all, she had completed one of the most remarkable, uplifting journeys in Winter Olympic history. With this win, Alysa Liu didn't succeed by mimicking the harsh mechanical systems that ruled the sport for decades. She didn't prevail through deprivation, endless drills, or fear. She triumphed by showing up as the most real-centered and fully human competitor on the ice. Her gold medal sends a resounding message to every exhausted young athlete who has felt the same suffocation she once did. You can walk away. You can build a full, colorful life beyond the arena. Your worth as a person isn't measured by medals, rotations, or results. The federation that once treated a 13-year-old Alysa as a project now has no option but to see the 20-year-old woman as their greatest asset. Yet even at the summit of her sport, she stays refreshingly down to earth. In the mixed zone after the ceremony, she told journalists her favorite part of the night wasn't the gold itself. It was celebrating wildly with friends, embracing her rivals, and heading out late into the Italian streets for pizza with her siblings. She is the most genuinely relatable greatest of all-time figure skating has ever seen. For Alysa Liu in Milan, success was never about the medal around her neck. It was about the independence she battled to regain. She demonstrated to the world that true greatness isn't defined by how much silent suffering you can endure. It's defined by the courage to decide your own path. She chose to leave when it was breaking her. She chose to return when it brought joy. She chose her music, her coaches as partners, her raccoon stripes, and ultimately the judges chose her. Standing on the top podium in Italy with the American flag ascending and the anthem ringing out, she didn't resemble a finely tuned robot, stripped of personality. She looked like someone who had lived many lives in just 20 years and had finally found the one that felt right. Alysa Liu didn't simply win Olympic gold in Milan, she reclaimed her life. She showed an entire generation watching that the most elegant, powerful, and defiant thing you can do on the ice isn't landing a quadruple. It's refusing to be anything other than yourself, no matter what the world demands. The 2026 Winter Games will be remembered for many moments, but the story of the Rebel Queen will be the one that forever reshapes the soul of figure skating. Milan belongs to her. The drought is over and Alysa Liu is right where she decided to.